It's a great pleasure for me to be here to talk on a subject which is very important these days. The global financial crisis. What can Islamic finance do to reduce the severity and frequency of such crises in the future? Because it's a great honor to be speaking when the chief guest is Dr. Ishrat Hussain. He has done a great deal for Islamic banking in Pakistan. When he became governor, Islamic finance was lying almost lifeless in the cold storage of the state bank. He brought it out and revived it and has done as much as he could to make it flourish in this country. So the global financial, Khurram Murad, of course, was a great friend of mine. It is once Sayyidina Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu wanted to know about a person, and he asked him about that person. He said, don't tell me that you see him coming to the mosque every day. Tell me if you have lived with him, if you have traveled with him, or if you have had any business transaction with him. These are the three ways of knowing a person. And fortunately, I lived with Brother Khurram Murad for almost 2 years in the University of Minnesota. We had an apartment with 2 bedrooms, and he and I shared the same 1 bedroom. So I came to know him very well. Of course, I even knew him during the days of Islamic Jamiat Talaba, and having lived with him, I came to know him even better. He was a perfect gentleman, a very good Muslim. It's very difficult to find people of that stature in the Muslim world at present. To know about the global crisis, we need to first of all determine the real cause of the crisis. What is the real cause of this crisis? The main cause, as pointed out by a number of scholars, is the excessive and imprudent lending. High leverage. Of course, when the leverage is high, the lending would be very much. So what is it that enables banks to resort to excessive lending? This is a question which is very important, and unless we find out the cause of this excessive expansion of credit, we will not be able to find a solution. See, excessive lending was brought about because of lack of adequate discipline in the financial market. This may appear to you to be strange when there are central banks and the market mechanism also is there. Why is it possible for banks to resort to excessive lending? But this has been the case, and the reason, as I indicated to you, is lack of adequate discipline. Now, what is it that brings about this deficiency in discipline in the financial markets? If you look at a school where the students do not have to give an exam, everybody is passed, how many students will study? So it is the failure or success In business, it will be the loss or profit that brings about discipline in the market system. And this is one of the most important reasons why a market system can operate effectively. If there is no discipline, then the market system cannot operate. Now, what is it that reduces discipline in the financial system? The absence of profit and loss sharing. And of course, there is another very important factor that brings discipline. It is the supervision, regulation and supervision of the central bank. Market discipline requires two other assets which must be there: rules of behavior, regulation and supervision, regulation and then supervision. This is very important because even the Prophet ﷺ says that Inna Allah la yaza'u bis sultani akthara mimma yaza'u bil Quran. God restrains through the sultan or the government, and in the case of the central banks, in the case of banking system, the central bank, more than what he restrains through the Quran. The Quran can give only certain principles. Be honest, do not cheat, do not commit injustice, but it cannot enforce these values of Islam. It is the job of the government, the regulatory authorities and the supervisory authorities to do this job. So the Quran provides the values, and then these authorities have to enforce them. If they do not play a proper role, then the rules will not be effective. The prevailing system has failed on all these counts. Market discipline is not adequate. Regulation and supervision have also not been adequate. The market discipline requires incentives and deterrents. As I said, profit or loss. The fear of facing bankruptcy is a very important factor in the market system, which forces institutions, banks or businesses to operate effectively. If this fear is not there, then they may do whatever they want. That's why one of the reasons of the failure of the Soviet system was that this fear was not there. As long as the superior authorities in the system are pleased with you, you can be there as long as you want. There is no problem. So the discipline is brought about by the fear of loss and the incentive of profit. Incentives and deterrents. Collateral, of course, is necessary. But collateral does not provide full protection. The protection comes from this discipline in the system. It can the value of the collateral code can go down, so the collateral can provide only protection only as long as the value of the collateral is higher than the debt the bank has given. As soon as the value of the collateral goes down below the amount of the debt, then the collateral is of little use. So this was one factor. But collateral is also there in the Islamic financial system. You cannot avoid collateral. Without collateral, the financial system may find it very difficult to operate. Another thing came which provided banks a great deal of security, and that was sale of debt. Sale of debt, in other words, I give somebody a loan and I sell the debt, then my responsibility is no longer there. If there is a default, it is the purchaser of the debt who will suffer the loss. Nothing, unless there is a right of recourse, the lender has nothing to fear. He has sold the debt, and now it is the responsibility of the person who buys the debt to ensure that he gets the money. Sale of debt provided another security to the financial system. And this was very attractive because they can give debt and sell it, extend as much debt as possible and then sell it. This became one of the reasons for excessive expansion of debt. Within the Islamic financial system, it is not allowed to sell debt. There was a time when I felt, why this restriction? I felt that this was not right. But then when I came to realize through this financial crisis in the financial system, I thought that God is right and I am wrong. Because when you can sell the debt, then there is no need to scrutinize the debt proposal properly. You can go on giving as much debt as possible, and then the risk is transferred. This transferring of the risk through the sale of debt enabled the banking system to be less disciplined than it should have been.